Hi, my name is Dr. Lynn Ridenauer, and I'm a Southern Baptist minister who preaches out of the Bible and the Book of Mormon. We're doing a series on restoration themes of the gospel, and the title of this evening's session is Extraordinary Stories from Early Latter-day Saints, Signs, Wonders, and Miracles. Some of you might be aware, I love your church history. What wonderful stories occurring to ordinary families and individuals. I have some wonderful hidden nuggets I would like to share with you from biographies and different sources. And so I'll be reading them to you. It's my hunch you've probably not run across these extraordinary saints, their individual stories, and important legacies they've left us. Listen to this. Martin Harris related an instance that occurred during the time that he wrote that portion of the translation of the Book of Mormon, which he was favored to write direct from the mouth of the prophet Joseph Smith. He said that the prophet possessed a seer stone, by which he was enabled to translate as well as from the Urim and Thummim, and for convenience he then used the seer stone. Martin explained the translation as follows, and I quote, "By aid of the seer stone, sentences would appear, and were read by the prophet and written by Martin. And when finished, he would say, 'Written,' and if correctly written, the sentence would disappear and another appear in its place. But if not written correctly, it remained until corrected, so that the translation was just as it was engraved on the plates, precisely in the language then used." Martin said, after continued translation, they would become weary and would go down to the river and exercise by throwing stones out onto the river. On one occasion, Martin found a stone very much resembling the one used for translation, and on resuming their labor of translation, Martin put in place the stone that he had found. He said that the prophet remained silent, unusually, and intently gazing in darkness, no traces of the usual sentences appearing. Much surprised, Joseph exclaimed, "Martin, what's the matter? All is as dark as Egypt." Martin's countenance betrayed him, and the prophet asked Martin why he had done so. Martin said to stop the mouths of fools who had told him that the prophet had learned those sentences and was merely repeating them. End of quote. You'll find what I just quoted in the Millennial Star. I love this story. I quote, "One night, it was midnight, my husband and I," says Elizabeth Whitney, "were in our house at Kirtland praying when the Spirit rested upon us and a cloud overshadowed the house. It was as though we were out of doors. The house passed away from our vision. We were not conscious of anything but the presence of the Spirit and the cloud that was over us. We were wrapped in the cloud. A solemn awe pervaded us. We saw the cloud and felt the Spirit of the Lord. Then we heard a voice out of the cloud saying, 'Prepare to receive the word of the Lord, for it's coming.' At this we marveled greatly, but from that moment we knew that the word of the Lord was coming to Kirtland." In the Whitney family history, they write that, and I quote, "About the 1st of February, 1831, a sleigh containing 4 persons drove through the streets of Kirtland and drew up in front of Gilbert and Whitney's store. The occupants of the sleigh were evenly divided as to sex. One of the men, a young and stalwart personage, alighted, and springing up the steps, walked into the store to where the junior partner was standing. "Newell K. Whitney, thou art the man!" he exclaimed, extending his hand cordially, as if to an old and familiar acquaintance. "You have the advantage of me," replied the one addressed, as he mechanically took the proffered hand. "I could not call you by name as you have me." "I am Joseph the prophet," said the stranger, smiling. "Prate me here. Now, what do you want of me?" The prophet, it is said, while in the East, had seen the Whitneys in a vision, praying for his coming to Kirtland. Newell Whitney, astonished, but no less delighted, conducted the party across the street to his house on the corner, where he introduced them to his wife. She shared fully his surprise and pleasure. Elizabeth Whitney writes, "I remarked to my husband that this was the fulfillment of the vision we had seen of a cloud as a glory resting upon our house." To bring the revelation about the Whitneys receiving the word of God to pass yet more literally, during the time the prophet resided with them and under the very roof, a number of the revelations were given, now recorded in the Doctrine and Covenants. You'll find the source of this story in Elizabeth Ann Whitney's autobiography. After being challenged by a rival attorney during a trial, Cowdery affirms that his written testimony of seeing the golden plates is true. What I'm about to read is an account given by C.M. Nielsen. The source is Oliver Cowdery and his testimony, an address delivered by Judge C.M. Nielsen in the 24th Ward Meeting House, Salt Lake City, Utah, February the 20th, 1910. I quote, "When I was 21 years of age, I was working my father's farm in Michigan. I had worked hard on the farm that summer and decided to take a day off, so went to the city. Near the courthouse, I saw a great many people assembling and others walking that way, so I went over to see what was up. There was a jam in the courthouse, but being young and strong, I pushed my way close up to the center, where I found the prosecuting attorney addressing the court and jury in a murder trial. The prosecuting attorney was Oliver Cowdery, and he was giving his opening address in behalf of the state. Let me mention, after he was cut off from the church, Oliver Cowdery studied law, practicing in Ohio, Wisconsin, and then Michigan, where he was elected prosecuting attorney. Back to the quote. After Cowdery sat down, the attorney representing the prisoner arose and with taunting sarcasm said, "May it please the court and gentlemen on the jury, I see one Oliver Cowdery is going to reply to my argument. I wish he would tell us something about the Mormon Bible, something about that golden Bible that Joe Smith dug out of the hill, something about the great fraud he perpetrated upon the American people, whereby he gained thousands of dollars. Now he seems to know so much about this poor prisoner. I wonder if he has forgotten all about Joe Smith and his connection with him." The speaker all the while sneering and pointing his finger in scorn at Cowdery in the hope of making ridiculous before the court and jury. Everybody present began to wonder if they had been guilty of making such a mistake as choosing a Mormon for prosecuting attorney. Even the judge on the bench began looking with suspicion and distrust at the prosecutor. The prisoner and his attorney became elated at the effect of the speech. People began asking, "Is he a Mormon?" Everybody wondered what Cowdery would say against such foul charges. Finally, Oliver Cowdery arose, calm as a summer morning. I was within 3 feet of him. There was no hesitation, no fear, no anger in his voice as he said, "May it please the court and gentlemen of the jury, my brother attorney on the other side has charged me with connection with Joseph Smith and the Golden Bible. The responsibility has been placed upon me, and I cannot escape reply. Before God and man, I dare not deny what I have said, and what my testimony contains, and as written and printed on the front page of the Book of Mormon. May it please your honor and gentlemen of the jury, this I say, I saw the angel and heard his voice. How can I deny it? It happened in the daytime, when the sun was shining bright in the firmament, not in the night when I was asleep. That glorious messenger from heaven, dressed in white, standing above the ground in a glory I have never seen anything compare, with the sun insignificant in comparison. And these personages told us, if we denied that testimony, there is no forgiveness in this life, nor in the world to come. Now, how can I deny it? I dare not. I will not. End of quote. Brothers and sisters, what a blessed story. I conclude with these thoughts. Stories inspire us. There's nothing better than a good story. Theaters are jam-packed when a good story comes to town. Newscasters make their living by reporting stories. Preachers tell stories. Salesmen tell stories. Historians, neighbors, everyone likes a good story. The Bible calls them testimonies. The gospel is a story. It's good news. If Jesus had risen from the dead today, his resurrection would be on Facebook in a matter of minutes, tweeted around the globe in seconds, breaking news on cable. iPads and smartphones would be buzzing among young people from Hot Springs to Hong Kong. Even God has a word to say about a good story. First of all, we are to remember our stories, our testimonies, and pass them down to our children. Believe it or not, this is a big deal with God. I quote Psalms 78 verses 4 through 7. Telling to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works, that is, his wonderful stories that he has done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers that they should make them known to children, that the generation to come might know them. The children who would be born, that they may arise and declare them to their children, that they may set their hope in God and listen carefully and not forget the works of God. In other words, how do individuals forget God? The same way nations forget God. An individual and or a nation no longer passes on the stories in the Bible. I like the Hebrew etymology of the word testimony in its original meaning. The word testimony is translated into Hebrew as God, do it again, and that's my prayer. God, do it again. Let these stories resound of the restoration movement. Sadly, it's been my experience, restoration saints have forgotten the stories of the early saints. Yes, God, do it again. Let us not be the generation who forgets the wondrous stories of the early saints. This has been Dr. Lynn Ridenhour, Southern Baptist minister. Should you desire to contact us, give us a call at 573-480-8660 or send us an email at htrails2@gmail.com. And God bless you.